Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Seth Weiner. I am your auctioneer, and you're tuned into Coffee Connections. I know you're like, you're where's the beans? We were out of beans, so we had to take a pause for a little bit. No, just life got busy. But by popular demand, everyone said they wanted Coffee Connections back. I guess you needed your Java in the form of Innovators in Atlanta. Well, right now in Atlanta, we might branch out and talk to others, but innovators in the nonprofit world, and that is what Coffee Connections is about. So thank you. A little quick update. We now are on all your platforms. So no longer are we just video on YouTube, which you can see at Your Auctioneer's channel, youtube.com/c/Your Auctioneer. So all the Coffee Connection videos are there, but also Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can hear this voice. I know that scares you, right? But it's available and it's free. So check it out. But we're going to jump right in today's program because why wait, right? Because we got a wonderful guest. And today's guest is Susan Watson. She's a co-founder of Daughters Against Alzheimer's. She started that with Michelle Rooks. And the nonprofit launched a signature event called Battle for the Brain. It's a lip sync competition. They started this in the fall of 2017. And they had a goal of raising $10 million for research towards AD by the year 2025. Now, Daughters Against Alzheimer's is on track to succeed, all while creating an opportunity to have a lot of fun, help remove the stigma often associated with Alzheimer's disease, and to create an unprecedented awareness of the reality of our society that we face right now and we're going to face for years to come. And they do this. They've raised tons of money for research, helping millions of people. And so I'm really excited to bring Susan into the program here. So let me get everything situated because it's been a minute. And there we go. And boom, look at that. Susan, hi, how are you?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I understand Michelle's not able to join us, but you can talk for her, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We
Well,
always complete each other's sentences anyway. So
well, that's wonderful. Let's start before we get into everything because this Coffee Connections, do you happen to have a mug?
I do. Here we go. Battle for the
Oh, look at
brain.
this. Battle for the Brain mug. Tell us about it.
Well, this is actually, we'll talk a little bit later about the event that we hold every year, our biggest fundraiser, or really our primary event. But this was a gift that we gave all of our performers one year. And yes, I actually don't drink coffee, but it holds many other beverages for me.
Well, folks, hope you enjoyed Coffee Connections. I'm just kidding. So you don't drink coffee, but you must drink other things. What other beverages do you drink? Hot beverages. You're a tea drinker?
No, I'm not. I'm not a hot drinker at all.
So
Um,
what?
a lot of water. I try to do a lot of water. I'll have the occasional Diet Coke. Um, and I have a real natural sort of energy drink that I love. So yeah.
All right. Well, so what? I mean, coffee and tea typically are the caffeine source for folks. So I assume you don't really drink much caffeine. What gets you the kick to get your day started then? Just life?
Life, yeah, yeah. Being very cause driven. And I really can't start my day without a shower. So that's my burst.
Okay.
Wake up,
All right.
Susan.
Well, I'm going to hand it over to you, Susan. Why don't you tell everyone about Daughters Against Alzheimer's and what got you started and just a little bit about the organization, anything else you want to share?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Seth. Yeah, so as Seth said, my friend Michelle and I founded Daughters Against Alzheimer's several years ago. Her mother had been diagnosed, gosh, several years earlier, maybe in the around 2012. And unfortunately, she lost her mother 4 years ago. But my own mother, and I would support her when she would do some fundraising for the Alzheimer's Association. And meanwhile, my mother was diagnosed as well, at least with mild cognitive impairment, which is a precursor to Alzheimer's. And we started talking, and I was realizing that so many people around me in our world, friends, were starting to deal with this with their parents. And at least the ones who were vocal about it were women. And we thought we've got to do more. We've got to raise the noise here because it's a disease it's stayed behind closed doors for too long. There's often a stigma attached with it because, I think it's mainly when you've got a loved one who was so vibrant, so successful, so wise, so whatever they were, and they're not that anymore. you and they don't want the world's last impression of them to be what they become with this disease, which is a shell of that. And it's slow and somewhat unpredictable. And I know, speaking from my own mother's sake, they tend to isolate at that point, because once they're cognizant of their incognizance, that's the worst phase of this, because it's scary. You don't know at what moment you're you or not. And it's just brutal. You're losing that person really one day at a time, and the grief is so prolonged, and the part of that person that you're losing each day, you don't know what it is. And then little parts will show back up on another day, and you're like, oh, wait, well, there's hope, and you fall prey to that hope. But it's just such a roller coaster, and the progression is different for everyone. And anyway, not a fun thing that we wish on anyone, but it's very prevalent. There's 6 million Americans currently diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but many more undiagnosed. And I'll get to this in a minute, but another 45 or 50 million of us walking around with the pathology beginning to develop in our brains, which again, we'll come back to in terms of the research and how valuable it is. But yeah, so we decided we've got to do something to raise the noise, to increase the level of conversation and get people talking, so that, because awareness brings funding. And now, of course, we wanted to raise funds, but there's only so much any one entity or group can do. It all matters, don't get me wrong, every single penny. But the more you raise the noise, we've seen it with cancer, we've seen it with AIDS, things that used to be a death sentence, which, by the way, Alzheimer's is fatal, are no longer. And we hope to see that with Alzheimer's for sure, sooner rather than later. But so yes, we founded this nonprofit and created a really fun event called Battle for the Brain, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it's a lip sync competition, and because we wanted people to have some fun while doing this, and to have some kind of a relief point from the emotional burden, and physical. I mean, caregivers of patients with Alzheimer's, it's a very, very physical and emotional burden. In fact, sadly, a lot of when it's an elderly couple, one is dealing with it and the other is the caregiver, there's statistics that the non-affected patient or a member of the couple is usually passes sooner from the stress. So it's a lot. Not to mention the fact that it's very hard to find someone these days who is not personally affected one way or the other, or knows someone. But even when I do, I'm saying, I remind them that actually, as a taxpayer, as an American, it's costing us $40 million an hour. So we are all affected. It is by far the costliest disease in the United States. And depending on what you look at, the one of the deadliest too. That's, some statistics say sixth leading cause, some say third, but the difference has to do with a lot of people who die as a result of this disease. On the death certificate, it's not Alzheimer's. It says, aspirated or whatever, because they choked to death because they can no longer swallow. And I could go on and on. So the numbers are skewed a bit, but it's brutal. And but we really wanted hope. And I mean, we have hope, and we wanted people to focus on that hope, and we want to bring people hope. So yeah, that was our main purpose to form this. And we wanted, most importantly, all of our funds to go to research. There are a lot of great organizations out there, a lot of great causes, but even within this cause, other organizations, and they do great things, education, support, so forth. But we wanted 100% of what we raised to go to research, because of the hope that's there, and also because we know that we'd rather just get rid of this disease than continue to deal with it. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for standing up and making this happen. I'm going to start backwards and kind of from the end and kind of work our way back to what you started with. But the fund's going to research. Can you break down a little bit? Because it's not just going to research, it's local research here in Atlanta, right? At Emory. So can you talk a little bit more about where that money is going? Because it's unlike a lot of organizations where you collect money and then it's going, to executive teams and staffing, and then a little bit's going to research. This, you're handing a check and it's going, and then not only that you're handing that check, but you talk about some of the strides that we've had recently in this research.
Yeah, no, happy to. Yes, we're very fortunate here in Atlanta to have Emory's Goizueta Alzheimer's Disease Research Center in our backyard, and they are among the leading, institutions and groups in the world in the field of Alzheimer's research. They are NIH, National Institute of Health, designated as an ADRC, Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, of which there are several around the country. But they are fantastic. I can't say enough about them. My own mother's treated there, or seen there. There's not really treatment per se right now. But when we went to them, it said, we want you to be our beneficiary. They were very gracious and said that we could help decide where the funds would go. And we have dialed in, and I think the first year or so, we supported what you call high risk projects, but high risk in the sense that there are these, call them like $50,000 grants to do a certain look at like a sleep study, or, and how that affects the brain or something. But philanthropy is the only thing that can fund these, with unrestricted funds, these projects that once you have some success learning something from a project and it gets escalated, only then, with promise of success, can you receive the really big funds from really mostly government and other big grant tours. But so we were happy to be able to fund some of these things, because that is where the magic happens, when you can discover things that they have to start somewhere, and it's in these smaller projects that grow to bigger revelations. That it's really where it all starts. And like I said, you can't fund that with government dollars. As a taxpayer, we wouldn't want our funds going to just very, risky things. And so that is necessary, and we were happy to do it. In the last few years, we've focused more on supporting the development of early diagnostics. And specifically by that, you've probably a lot of people have read about over the years, if they've seen research on Alzheimer's, it hasn't been very promising, but that is because, and from a pharmaceutical standpoint, what they were finding is that they were treating it too late. So the drug might have the potential to be effective, but they were treating it. It's almost like saying it's stage 4 cancer and you're trying to completely reverse it. And so while the research or the drugs, let's call them, led to that realization, that's a big one, because realizing that if we can catch it early, just like so many chronic diseases, if we can catch it early and treat it early, they have seen that some of these pharmaceuticals have a tremendous, sometimes up to 30+% result in slowing down the process. And when I say the process, it's there are many, many, many factors that go into what could make you at higher risk for developing Alzheimer's. But one of the markers, or the primary markers they look at, are the development of certain proteins in your brain. And what they have seen, again, have discovered, is that when I referenced earlier that 45 or 50 million of us are walking around with those plaques beginning to build up, and yet we're asymptomatic. So if we can develop something as simple as a blood test, just like you go in for a mammogram or a colonoscopy at a certain age, go in, get a blood test to see if these proteins are developing, or there's evidence of them, and then treat it with pharmaceuticals that can help slow that process down. Now, of course, we all know that the ideal thing is prevention, right? Cure. But they're learning a lot about that too. And in fact, just this year, the National Institute of Aging, which is part of the NIH, released what they call a pillar of what they stand on when kind of addressing how they approach this disease. And that is all about lifestyle. And it seems very common sense and logical, but the medical world is sometimes hesitant to go there. But they have done enough studies and enough research to suggest that with certain lifestyle factors can have up to 40% influence on your risk of developing Alzheimer's. And those include very basic common sense things, but your diet, exercise, and I don't necessarily mean you have to be some high-powered athlete. It's just staying active, staying, moving. Quality sleep and enough of it are huge. Staying social, staying, having a purpose, learning new things, developing cognitive reserve. So it's learning a new language, learning an instrument, learning to ballroom dance, yoga, things that you're forcing your body, because what you're doing is you're growing new synapses to connect and develop this cognitive reserve. So even if the disease may be developing, there's more fuel in the tank, so to speak, to put it in layman's terms. But yeah, if we can help right now to diagnose Alzheimer's, you really it's done with very expensive, whether it's PET scans, spinal taps, painful, not things that the average person can do on a daily basis. So to address this disease globally in every sense of the word, we need something that's cheap and easy. And a blood test is really what's ideal. And there's a lot of that in development, and that's exactly what we're funding right now.
And you said international. That was one of my next questions. Is this research is international? It's not. This is not an American disease. This is international.
No, yeah.
Are we seeing strides elsewhere as well? Are the collective works together?
Yes. In fact, that's one thing. Another reason we were drawn to Emory, because the medical research for Alzheimer's and this disease in particular tends to be, relative to a lot of other medical research, relatively collaborative. And I think because it is so prominent. I mean, there are 50 plus million people worldwide. And like I said, it's not 50 million people means there are another 150 million people dealing with that disease in their family. And it takes 3 people to care for any one patient. And so it's, and again, just the expenses as well. But so Emory is in fact, the head of the ADRC, Alan Levy, Dr. Alan Levy, he's fantastic. He's going to miss our event this week because he's traveling abroad. And so, yes, it's, significant strides everywhere. But they're right there in the thick of it. So.
All right. And the other question I have is, you said $40 million. It's a cost to our society an hour. Mm-hmm. How is that?
Well, you think about, this is essentially like reverse aging. You've become a toddler, and we all know what it costs, whether it's, well, in this case though, whether it's medical equipment, I'll give my own mother as an example, who is mid to late stage Alzheimer's. She's, your brain affects everything in your body. And so she is a huge fall risk. She has broken multiple, she broke both her arms, then she broke her pelvis, then she just recently broke her shoulder. She fell again recently and had to have a CAT scan. And that's all in the last 2 years. And then you add the medications that go to treat these, whether it's antibiotics or pain meds or whatever it may be. And then you've got the caregiving, because they need, when you get to a certain point, you can't leave them alone. Fire hazard, you name it. And again, the fact that there's in my own family, she lives in assisted living, but my 2 sisters and I are still on a rotational basis, checking in with her. We have to replenish her needs. Anyway, I won't get into all the details, but they're 100% dependent. Right. And whether it's a medical cost or, doctor, I mean, there's so many, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. It does all that up. And gosh, I mean, to break a hip, for example, and then to have Alzheimer's and not even to remember that you broke the hip, it just seems like it's just problem after problem after problem.
Well, you're exactly right. In fact, using the most recent, her shoulder, when she was, 25 years ago, she had rotator cuff surgery. So now her brain, when she feels the pain, she thinks it's related to the rotator cuff surgery. And that's what she remembers. And then on any other given day, she might remember that she did actually fall and slip on the bathroom floor. But there's no, yeah. And then sometimes they don't even know what the pain is,
Right.
and enough to I mean, think about a baby, a newborn. They feel pain, but they can't express it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you're dealing with. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so there's a lot of costs that go into this research, and it's amazing the strides that we're seeing in it. And you're absolutely right. It's there's the simple things of doing things like yoga or just moving, because often we sit and then when we're done working, we go sit on the couch, and when we're done sitting on the couch, we go to bed. And so,
Mhm.
those things do make a huge difference, and it's good to know that. And the preventative, I'm excited to see. Hopefully, I'm thinking about my son who's 9 and his generation, that by the time he's in his 30s, that maybe they've got this preventative capabilities so that their generation doesn't have to see this.
Well, I will tell you that we are 100% driven by the hope and the research, and the doctors at Emory will tell you that if you're essentially their age, which is, around 60 or younger, that when we're at the highest risk age, we will have disease mitigating treatment. So
Mm.
we're talking you and me, not just our kids. But
That's incredible.
but
Yeah.
the way I look at it, this is also about my kids because I do not want them to have to go through with me
Yeah.
what I'm going through with my mother. And my mother hates that this is going on. And I have 3 sons too. So it's my mother has 3 daughters. That helps. But no, my boys are great. But it's a little different. The women tend to be a little more the caregivers. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, speaking of caregiving, it costs money, and you've got quite the event you've created that is able to raise a lot of money. Your first year raised $250,000, and this year you're at what was it? I think you said it was over $1 million.
Well, our goal is 1 million, and the event's 2 days away, and we're at about 975 right now. So
All
we'll blow
right.
through that and more.
So yeah, tell us about Battle for the Brain.
Well, as I said earlier, we wanted something fun and we wanted something different. We didn't want another gala. I mean, they're wonderful, but we kind of joke about some people saying, "Oh, well, how much more do I have to pay not to go?" Or spend a fortune on your outfit or something that could be going to the cause. And we wanted music. Our response to music, the part of the brain that responds to that is the last part affected with Alzheimer's, the progression of Alzheimer's. And so there are many stories like music therapy is great for Alzheimer's patients. And, music is also something that brings us together in this crazy world. And so we wanted fun. We didn't necessarily expect everyone to be talented to be singing. So lip sync, go with lip sync. Plus you can do anything as a lip syncer, regardless of your talent per se. But the very first year, we really weren't quite sure what we were getting into. We were just, on a wing and a prayer and going for it. And we were lucky to get the Atlanta Falcons cheerleaders as a team. So we typically have around 10 teams who compete. And we have judges like American Idol, celebrity judges. And the teams compete for both the People's Choice, which is who raises the most funds, and then the Judges' Choice based on the scoring. But that first year when we got the cheerleaders involved, and we had 9 other teams that kind of from random sources, they really raised the bar because everyone was like, well, crap, we've got to compete against that, And so I always tell them they really set the tone. And our very first year, I mean, we sat in the back of the room and in tears, just like, wow, first of all, the courage that it takes to do this and the time that these people put in. And most of the corporate teams, we've got Delta Airlines, Morgan Stanley, got the cheerleaders still, Ryder, Dorsey Austin Realtors, Tootsie's Boutique. We've got 11 teams this year, and they're doing this after hours. Often they have to, especially with remote working, we've got people who they're not together all day, and then they have to go find a place to practice. But we often joke it's, these are not professionals. This is like Susie from accounting breaking it down on stage. And that's part of the fun. So we created it. The first year we raised 250, the second year 450, third year 650, and that was February of 2020. In the world, we got lucky before
Just
everything
got it
shut
in.
down. 21, we had not really a virtual event. We kind of did a social media thing and raised about 150 grand. And then
Oh, wow.
22, we raised 875. And this year we're going to break 1 million. So yeah.
Wonderful. And I will mention that there's an auction and a paddle raise, a fund to need, as part of it. And I understand you got a Rocktioneer this year, huh?
Yeah, someone like Seth Weiner or something like that. So we're excited to have you on the team.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. It's going to be a great night, and the Roxy is a fun venue. Wow, it's what a tremendous support though to have. And it's just great to know again where this money's going. Folks, I know you're looking, saying you want to go. Battleforthebrain.org is the website to check out, as well as daughtersagainst.alz.org. But tickets are sold out for this year, but you can still go online and you can make a donation and support this research. So again, daughtersagainst.alz.org.
Yeah, well, actually, even better, I can also free access. If you go to battleforthebrain.org, as of tomorrow, we will have our live stream button ready, and that's complimentary. It's free. You can watch the entire show from the comfort of your living room for free. So battleforthebrain.org, it's /live, but you can find the button on the website, and you can still donate from the comfort of your couch as well. We'll have, it's again like the text to vote down at the bottom of the screen. Vote for your favorite team, because every $1 equals 1 vote, and there's a winner and a runner-up. So we're excited.
All right. Well, yeah. So folks, tune in on Thursday. This Thursday. I think it starts at 6 p.m.
Well, the doors open at 6. The show starts at 7:30 Eastern, and so the live stream will start at 7:30 Eastern.
Perfect. All right. So you don't even need coffee that time of night. Get your tea ready or your wine. Most people probably be drinking wine at that time.
What do you think this is for? Wine? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Well, all right. Well, before, I know you're short of time. You got an event to finalize, so I'm going to let you go. But before I do, is there anything we didn't mention that you wanted to bring up?
No. Well, there is also on the site, there's a super silent auction tab. So we've got a few items there that you can bid on without being live in the venue that night, but that will close out that night too. But they're good 15 or 20 fun items there as well.
Awesome. Great experiences. So check that out. Again, battleforthebrain.org. All the info is there. And listen, before I let you go, I got to ask you, is there another nonprofit that's innovator in this area? It could be all of Georgia, but ideally in our area, that you'd recommend to be a guest here on Coffee Connections?
I would. Well, in the nonprofit world, you tend to, get to know each other pretty well. And I've got a very good friend. Her name's Joelle Fox, who's gotten very involved with an organization called Be the Bridge. And I think it's wonderful. They are very focused. It has everything to do with race relations, and it's promoting and encouraging the difficult conversations that even among friends, who may be of different races, to come face to face and to talk about issues that may be holding us all back. And ultimately, some of the things, people may agree to disagree, but it's about achieving understanding of another person's perspective, and so that we can respect it, all of us. So
that sounds perfect. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for making the time. I know you're so busy, so thank you so much for making the time to be on Coffee Connections. Again, battleforthebrain.org and daughtersagainst.alz.org. Please, everyone, make sure your support known. We'll see you back here in the future. Folks, if you have a guest that you want to be on the show, we are booking. So info@yourrocktioneer.com. That's info@yourrocktioneer.com. We'll see you again, and I'll see you all Thursday. Tune in live. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a great day.